Alright, I wanted to offer my first impressions about Elden Ring Nightreign. I'm going to try my best to keep this around 10 minutes because I do not need to go to 20 minutes. Anyway, so far, I'm really enjoying it. And I typically don't like roguelikes, and I'm just wondering, maybe I've been approaching them the wrong way, perhaps. I enjoyed games like Dead Cells, but I never got anywhere that far with it. And I think I think I've been putting my mind in a very different perspective of them. I'm not sure. I can't really explain that right now. And I think with Elden Ring is that it is very familiar. And I think that's the reason why God of War Valhalla was somewhat decent for me to play, was that it was very familiar after I completed God of War Ragnarok. So I do plan to go back. I like to go back to God of War Ragnarok. Yeah, the God of War Valhalla and give it another shot. Plus, I'm sure it has received uh, good enough patches. Perhaps I'll have to look that up. So with Night Rain, I want everybody to realize, and this is something that people just are not. This is something that people are not saying, and this is something that's very consistent with From Software releases. Every From Software game is released broken. The version that I'm playing right now is not going to be the same game a year from now. It is. There are a lot of things that are definitely not feeling right in terms of the combat flow, for me at least. That hasn't changed after several hours. Something about transitioning from running to striking, and also there's enemy tracking that just feels off. Stuff like that, little tiny stuff. It's not enough to where I'm like, oh, I can't play this. This is unplayable. It's just little minor refining fixes that will just make everything so smooth. One thing that is actually really nice is whenever an enemy staggers, and the critical strike is actually very smooth. However, at the same time, sometimes registering a critical attack from a distance is very bad. And what that means is whenever a boss stance breaks, when you run up to the boss and perform that critical strike, that it doesn't register for some reason. Now, I've experienced this in Bloodborne, of course. I would run up to an enemy whenever I would get their stance break, and sometimes it just did not work out. But it felt like it was more consistent. I felt like the registering was a lot more consistent in Bloodborne compared to Elden Ring. And I don't know what causes it exactly. And I know the first thing that's probably coming to your mind is, oh, lack of stamina. No. I have plenty of stamina. It's just not working. I mean, obviously, I perform a light attack if it misses. So anyway, what I'm pretty much doing, and I'll go, if I don't have anybody to play with that I can talk to, I'll just go to solo play, because really going with randoms is rather just a mixed box of I'm either going to get really far, or not going to get far at all, or I'm just going to carry. I know the last random I had, I was carrying the team basically, where they were constantly dying with the boss, and I was in survival mode. I had to back off and strike, and then once we got to Margot at the end of night 2, it didn't work out. I was basically just evading Margot whatever, the Fell Omen, I think is just what it's called, until I was just basically bored because I just wasn't inflicting enough damage for it to really matter. Plus, I'm like, even if I do make it to the final boss, these dudes are not gonna make it make a minute into the fight. But solo expedition is definitely one thing that really needs a lot of adjustments, because I actually just got finished a moment ago with a little test run, and the boss was Wormface, and they threw crabs and mice, well, rats technically, and these grabber dreglings, whatever you want to call those, the putrid corpses. I think these were something like that. And I really don't. There's not enough really get off me attacks. And I'm just wondering, do I just need to focus on getting AoE attacks? I don't know. I'm hoping I get lucky enough to get an AoE attack. Perhaps those need to be those for solo if they want to keep in multiple enemies, they need to drop AoE attacks, because how am I skillfully going to be able to maneuver through all those crazy types of enemies? Crabs, rats, grabbing dreglings, and a worm face with death blight? What are you expecting me to do there? Unless you just want me to walk around with AoEs and blast them. It's just, that's not reasonable difficulty. That's just overinflating difficulty. Also, there's nothing there for me to parry, so I can't use iframes for that. I'm assuming I still have iframes. That's another thing. A lot of in this game, whenever a boss is recovering, when they usually would have iframes, they actually don't. And this is funny because in the base game, whenever people would summon each other, you would attack the boss with a stand spray critical attack, and as they're getting up, they would strike the boss, but that was pointless. But in this game, they allow that, which was an awesome change. That's a great small detail that I'm glad that they added into this game, because it's definitely appropriate. But yeah, definitely the solo experience needs a lot of changes, because there's just too much luck involved for a good run. And I'm not saying that I need everything handed to me. I'm like, no, 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 no. I just want the bosses to feel great, and that's another thing I want to get across. I hope I can get this done in less than 4 minutes. The bosses, I didn't like the first Night Lord very much. And it kind of has the same scenario. There's a lot of luck-based situations. For example, the wolves. There's this wolf trio, Cerberus style boss, and they can shoot out these fire beams, and they can shoot them any way they want to. It is a freestyle fire beam shootout, and you can get caught in the crosshairs way too easily. And it's also rather difficult to understand. This is one thing that I have a complaint against the base game, is that fire spread is rather hard to see and understand about how far, where exactly does that damage detection end. But other than that, the Night Lord boss, I didn't really care for that much. I didn't have fun fighting it with other players, which is a problem for me personally, mainly because the boss just runs away a lot. I want to fight a boss where the attacks are complicated and I can stay on top of the boss. I don't want to have to worry about a boss retreating, running away. I don't really care for that much. Now that's what's the grappling hook good for that, but the grappling hook doesn't take you all the way back to the boss. It's not Sekiro level on in that particular aspect. It would be nice, most definitely, and I was kind of hoping that's what it would be. But so far, my favorite class is Wilder because of those tools. I can, especially with the annoying perfumers that have a lot of health for some reason, you can grapple up to them and attack them, then they'll retreat. Sometimes they'll heal, which is annoying, and then thankfully the grappling doesn't take long to restore. And then there's the explosion, which is a really satisfying special to pull off. And as for the other characters, I need to go back and mess with them a little bit more. I just didn't really care for their specials as much as this. Now the whatever that character is that has the huge dog special, that's really good. That reminds me of God of War levels. And this is one thing, is that this kind of reminds me of classic God of War in a way, and it's really nice. So the game, so basically how my expedition starts, and I'll have footage of an example of what I do, is I aim for the churches. I look for forts, because forts contain scarab maps. I believe has a time limit. Definitely go after the 2 scarabs that are closest to you to get those talismans, pick up whatever you can, and then try again later, because every fort has a scarab map. The forts are the best to start out with. Sometimes there's an abductor there, and the abductor seems to be worth killing. I got lucky and ended up with a bow, but the abductor just wanted to, I don't know, that was actually really sloppy, the way I was fighting the abductor. Like I said, this game's going to experience a lot of patches, and I'm definitely going to give it that chance. We have, I'm imagine maybe in a year, this game will probably be exactly where it needs to be. So anyway, that's all my thoughts on it. I'm really loving it. I'm loving playing it with my friends, and I really hope they make the proper adjustments they need to in the coming months. And hope you found my opinions somewhat insightful, and I hope you have a great day.